Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, swooners, pruners, and piano tuners, welcome along to the Joe Spiver YouTube channel, where we discuss books and little else. And you join me on another cloudy and overcast Sunday here in the north of England. Frankly, this winter has already been pretty tyrannical, and doesn't look like it's going to let up anytime soon. So I've come back to my Hollywood-esque studio, where I am pampered and seen after, and made sure that everything is, lighted perfectly, and that you can see my resplendent figure in front of you. I have had, as per usual, a sun-kissed soiree over in Antigua, where me and my wealthy heiress wife are currently wintering, where I consume enough mind-altering barbiturates to sedate a humpback whale. But I thought, rather than sort of stew and fizz in a bathtub of my own human excrement, I would produce for you my second bookshelf tour. I am giving the people what they want. Some of you were a little galled that that I cut it short the first time. I didn't continue the whole shelf, and like the prancing circus animal that I am going to do exactly what you want me to do. So we're going to start off with some Jane Austen. If you do happen to hear what appear to be the screams of a gentleman outside and somebody using a chainsaw, then that is just because it would appear that the gardener is chopping down some trees in the communal back courtyard that we have here. So if you do hear the screams, that's just a medieval doctor sawing through someone's pelvic girdle. So do not worry about that one little bit. Right then, let us be on with the bookshelf tour. So we ended last time with Lance Armstrong, an enigmatic figure, I think it's fair to say. But now we have a huge bulk of Miss Jane Austen, ladies and gentlemen. We have Sense and Sensibility, which, the lighting is so terrible on these books that I'm not going to be able to see. Sense and Sensibility. We have Persuasion, which was written right at the end of her career, or end of her life, I believe. Persuasion, with Captain Wentworth and Anne Elliot, with a bit of Byron invoked in there as well. We have Emma, which isn't helping, is a white cover. You can't see anything of that. Emma, a very, very, very weird... I think it's published by Everyman. It's got the Daily Telegraph on the back. Cover illustration by David Downton. The Everyman Library. I've never even heard of that publication. House from Vermont. So if you guys on the East Coast will perhaps have been to the Everyman offices, I'm not sure. Edited by Robert Clark of the University of East Anglia. So this is a right motley crew that have come together for this. That's Emma. Then we have, I'm trying to orchestrate the calisthenics of this correctly this time, because beforehand it was all a huge mess as everything fell to bits. But we have Mansfield Park, which is an Oxford World Classic, which figures what would you say, just a rather quizzical figure there, just on the front. We have, and then finally from Jane Austen, oh my god, we are really going to struggle with this, aren't we, Joe? We have, I'm going to use that as a little bit of stalwart. We have Pride and Prejudice in a Penguin Classic, which is really, really excellent. Now, as I've said before, toss a coin as to whether I believe Miss Austen can effectively start a novel without being, as we say, quizzical and altogether confusing. Overall, her novels, she made a habit of being faultless. Most of the stuff she does is absolutely excellent. She, encapsulates what it is for one burly man to meet one sort of rather, what would you say, rather casual woman. So she absolutely is really, really good at interhuman relations, is what I'm trying to say. As I've mentioned before in the past, I think Mansfield Park and which one else is it? Sense and Sensibility start in a ponderously complicated way, whereas, for example, this is a very, very famous beginning. We might as well get it out of the way. Pride and Prejudice is a huge introduction where somebody will talk about what Jane Austen ate for lunch and therefore how that impacted her novels. Volume 1, here we are. It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of a good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings or views of such a man may be on his first entering a neighbourhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as the rightful property of someone or other of their daughters. Yeah, so obviously Pride and Prejudice, I've read this 3 or 4 times. It's, Darcy and her name is going to evade me, Miss Bennet have become archetypal contradictory lovers who of course, overcome minor differences, and if I don't think I'm spoiling a plot there when they become essentially united at the end. So yes, I think Jane Austen is, as I say, she's made a habit of being flawless. I think most of her novels are absolutely, all those down there, I believe, are absolutely excellent, with a sensibility meh for me. But beyond that, I would say so. Next up, we have a colossal short volume stories, the complete short stories, volume 1 of J.G. Ballard. This is published by The Fourth Estate and sold for £14.99. I checked with my currency converter earlier on, and that I think amounts to about 12,000 US dollars and 15,000 Australian dollars for all concerned. That is the economic state that we are in just now. But this is, I mean, short story collections and essay collections I access at a very weird time. So, for example, you know, if you're in a weird liminal zone between between two huge works, and you've got half a day where you don't want to start something new, then I'll sometimes dabble in a James Wood essay or a Zadie Smith essay or whatever Johnson had to say about his Johnson. But for some reason, I've never used that for this. I've never used this for that purpose. I can't say I've even begun this. I can't even remember how I came to acquire it, which I guess makes me, even more of the prototypical member of the bourgeoisie, which you all hold me as. So, yeah, I'm not too sure. We've got some praise on the front. A one-man genre. He was impregnably sui generis, or sui generis. No one is or was remotely like him. And that's Martin Amis, who we've been excoriating all week long on this channel. But yes, that is, J.G. Ballard, The Complete Short Stories, Volume 1. So one assumes there are at least one or two other volumes of short stories much like it. But that is about it, a sort of farrago of colours there, as you can see on the front cover. How bizarre. But anyway, that's that, which I haven't yet gotten to. Next up, we have, oh my god, we are falling to bits. I'm going to do that. How smart was that? We have Sebastian Barry's Days Without End, which, again, I think I was compelled to read at university. I can't even remember the bits and bobs of it. After signing up for the US Army in the 1850s, barely 17, Thomas McNulty and his beloved brother-in-arms, John Cole, fight in the Indian Wars and the Civil War. Having both fled terrible hardships, their days are now vivid and filled with wonder, despite the horrors they both see and are complicit in. But when a young Indian girl crosses their path, Thomas and John must decide on the best way of life for them all in the face of dangerous odds. This will have been... I mean, I'm sure this features interracial strife and all sorts of difficulty in anachronistic times when people thought that people of a different colour skin were, by definition, intrinsically worse. But, of course, we won't highlight upon that. So I'm sure this was very good. It's called A Masterpiece by Ellie Smith and absolutely captivating by Val McDermid, neither of whom I am familiar with. Pitch Perfect, the outstanding novel of the year. He's also written The Secret Scripture, A Thousand Moons, and some other stuff. So that's Sebastian Barry, Days Without End, which I might have to... Well, I'm going to have to get through again, aren't I? Next up, we have... This is becoming alarmingly difficult to control. It's like a recalcitrant child. Anyway, we have Samuel Beckett's Endgame, which is a really rather thin thing. Faber and Faber have published this. Again, I wrote an essay at university on meta-theatre in Samuel Beckett's Endgame. This is full of nihilistic obscurantism. There's not an awful lot to be gleaned from it, in my opinion. It's just a genius gone absolutely mental, quite probably. I've also read Waiting for Godot. He's probably done some excellent non-fiction, as is the case with every idiotic writer of fiction. It turns out when they had to earn £100 a day for book reviewing, when they were jobbing hacks, it turns out that they were much, much better at doing that and much more entertaining, much more able to entertain a reader than when they were writing plays. I can't remember enjoying this. The words were wrung out of me by the exigencies of time. I probably needed to finish the essay by the end of the week. So I think it was meta-theatre in Endgame, something about it being a play within a play and that being somehow significant, as though anybody of rational mind would actually read this and think, oh, he's talking about a play within a play. But yeah, I'm not a huge Beckettian. A bloke called Ham and a bloke called Clove. Originally written in French and translated in English by Beckett, Endgame was given its first London performance at the Royal Court Theatre in 1957. And then we've just got some quotations and some more praise for it. But yeah, I'm indifferent to Beckett's brilliance. I'm somehow impervious to it. Next up, we have a an indomitable block of Saul Bellow, all of which are pretty much in some very vintage covers anyway. We have The Adventures of Augie March. This is I think, are these old Penguin mass markets or what? I don't know what they're called, but yeah. The Adventures of Augie March. We have Dangling Man. That was Bellows' opening novel with an enormous pile of cigarettes, which he smoked presumably just in the last quarter of an hour. We have Mr. Samler's Planet, which is a... Oh, Christ. That's terrible. I can't really remember much about Samler's Planet. I don't think it was very typically Bellovian, but nonetheless, I must have enjoyed it, because every time I happen upon Bellow, I either dislike him or absolutely love him. We have Seize the Day, which is a very short thing, a great entry into the Bellovian world, if indeed... That's a Penguin modern classic, by the way. I think that might actually be Bellow walking, is it? No, it's not. So that'll probably be in... Brooklyn somewhere, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this lighting is really terrible for showing you my books, isn't it? But there we are. We can't all be aesthetically pleasing, can we, folks? We have Herzog, which I have railed against on the channel before. This is the story of a failing academic who has had his wife leave him and retreats to somewhere like New Hampshire in order to revamp himself. There are some Bellovian motifs that I want to talk about before I get onto the non-fiction. That's all the fiction that I have. And I don't know where the hell... I read Ravelstein and reviewed it for you earlier in the week. I can't remember. I must have I haven't replaced it into the packet. But anyway, yes, there are some Bellovian tropes that I've, rightly railed against in the past, I think. He deals generally with slightly failing and previously successful academics who happen to smoke 420 cigarettes per hour and... drink 4 vodka martinis every day, and yada yada yada, who have definitely secondary wives, who have nothing but a bottle of perfume and a vulva, who do nothing but satisfy the concupiscent needs of the persona, and yeah, who, as I say, do nothing but either straddle the gentleman or put their heads in a pile of mashed potato, for some sort of warped comedic effect on the reader's behalf. I don't think Bellow is the master stylist that everybody hands him out to be, but as ever, the non-fiction is pretty good. This is him with his foot in his mouth, and other stories. I thought him with his foot in his mouth was non-fiction. Okay, that must be a short story collection. Anyway, there is a non-fiction collection which I've read and apparently don't have hold of, which is pretty good from Bellow. But yes, that's the huge heft, the Bellovian heft down here. What else do we have? I think with the rate this is going, I might get some of that shelf done as well. We have Alan Bennett's History Boys. Alan Bennett is I believe, or was, he may well be dead for all I know, turning in his grave at my desecrating him. He's was a playwright from Yorkshire, from in and around Leeds, I believe. And this is the story of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 adolescents who are taking what would now be regarded as the A-level exams just before university or college in America, who are trying to get into the illustrious Oxbridges of the world, and it's cut right through with all sorts of academic wistfulness and woe, and it talks about sexuality and yada yada yada, all of the modern tick boxes which make something successful. It talks about Nietzsche, and is pretty good at criticising Thatcher's league tables in Great Britain, which pretty much linger on today, whereby one's academic proficiency is judged by ticking boxes rather than your fluency, especially in the STEM fields. But yes, this is pretty good. There's an adaptation of it on Amazon Prime. If you are of that particular disposition, you can pay Jeff Bezos whatever it is, £10 a month, and watch it. Pay with your money, folks. That's pretty good. There's a bloke called Rudge in here who says that history is just one effing thing after the other, which has been taken as some sort of Tolstoy-esque insight into alienatory and how the world runs. Never really been all too bothered with it. There's a bloke called Hector in here, who I often quote as basically being enamoured by a long since dead human being, such as pick a person: Homer, Thomas Hardy, René Descartes, Anne Bronte. Anybody, Jane Austen, who is a completely, has immutable characteristics that are very, very different to yours. They are of a different socioeconomic background, different gender. They've got different hairstyle, they've lived completely different lives and have gone through different events, and yet they pen things which seem to be written personally for you. Hector, there's an excellent passage with Hector, and I'm forgetting the student's name, but yeah, this is a pretty good play. The adaptation isn't. We did this for A level at the time, and the story is about boys who are doing A levels, so that was where there was some affinity. But yes, I haven't. It's due a reread. Everything is due a reread that's on these shelves, to be honest, folks. I am going to just finish with this shelf today. So we have who did this again? Oh yeah, Kai Bird and Martin Sherwin's Oppenheimer. This was recommended to me by our great patron and pariah, Mr. Steve Donahue. I believe this is probably the only full-length belt and braces Oppenheimer biography in publicatory existence. This is pretty good. It's a hefty thing, 700, 800, 900 pages. It'll take you a week, folks. And yeah, it's very, very enjoyable. Whenever a historian or a biographer tells you that somebody is riddled with contradictions or is the walking physical embodiment of inherent contradictions, that's pretty lazy, because everybody is contradictory. Obviously, I may look svelte and insouciant here, but when I'm throwing up in the toilet or excreting, I look just as ungainly as the rest of you. So yes, this obviously Oppenheimer was both a very good communicator. He was loquacious and was very interdisciplinarian, bit of a polymath, liked his Sanskrit poetry? I am become death, destroyer of worlds. So he was very spiritual, and yet almost single-handedly pioneered the methods by which we would seek to destroy millions and millions of other people. Anyway, that being said, it's a pretty good biography. Kai Bird did most of it, I think. He's the one that does he was the front man for all of the media for it anyway. But yeah, this was mighty good. Plenty of good pictures in there. And obviously has become, its sales will have increased because of the major motion picture put out by Christopher Nolan, which is again 3 hours that you might not get back in your life if you chose to go to the cinemas, or if you're renting it now on Sky TV. But yes, this was a very, very, very good biography that I enjoyed every minute of, if that's not a cliche. And then last but not least, we have, drum roll please, The Western Canon by Harold Bloom. This is the only work that I have that I've got of Mr. Bloom's. This was when I was at University of Manchester. I was a volunteer at a bookshop whose name is going to evade me. Anywhere Out of the World, I think it was called. Second-hand place if you're into philosophy and I know, heaven forbid, if you're into philosophy or the classics, as we are, pop down there if you're local in Northern England, and they will be able to supply you with all sorts. But I was given this as a thank you for a few weeks volunteer work. I didn't take money. I sacrificed myself completely at the altar of that shop, and so they handed me this. For some reason I picked this out. He is cited as an excellent critic and as somebody who is dewy-eyed over everything that's ever been written, railed against what he termed the school of resentment, which prioritises one's immutable characteristics such as race, gender or country of birth, rather than the quality of your work, rightly. But he is a little bit of a chin stroker. He talks about Milton in here. We've got Milton, Tolstoy, Goethe, and a few others that he likes to talk about here. Cervantes, obviously. But yes, this is circumlocucious and a little bit overblown and highfalutin, and is a book completely obsessed with informing you just how clever Harold Bloom is, rather than actually putting you in possession of some of the wonderful facts about the canon of Western literature. But yeah, I think there's an enormous... I only got through about half of this. I would pick and choose between which bits that I want to read and which bits that I don't. So we've got Goethe. I've got Walt Whitman analysed as well. Wolf's Orlando. Feminism as the Love of Reading. I could have done to consult this last week, couldn't I, folks? There we are. Here was me absolutely tearing a strip off him. Beckett, Joyce, Proust and Shakespeare. How much do you not want to read that essay? Elegiac Conclusion. And then you've got... He essentially lists every single thing a learned individual ought to read. But yes, I was tempted to begin the second story of this, but I'm not going to, because this has already run in excess of 20 minutes, or is likely to, and I need to stop rambling on because the rest of my family have been completely resigned to silence so that I can do this. But yes, that has been the second part of my bookshelf tour. There will be more coming, don't worry folks. I am a man of the people, Vox Populi, Vox Dei. I'm going to give you exactly what you want. There are 5 more stories for your delectation, and I am happy to ram them down your throat, if you'll pardon the pun. But yes, that pretty much concludes for today, folks. Thank you. The chainsaw noise is gladly subsumed or subsided. So yes, that pretty much covers me for today. So thank you ever so much for watching BookTube, and goodbye.